Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into some really powerful, kind of unspoken laws for unlocking your potential, pulling directly from some fantastic source material.
So, let's start with a big one. What is the true measure of your potential? It's a huge question, right? But the framework we're exploring today offers a surprisingly simple way to think about it. And it's not some abstract, magical quality you're born with, but something way more tangible that you can actually control.
And this quote right here is the absolute core of the idea. You cannot pour from empty buckets. It's so simple but so profound. It suggests that our potential isn't just one single thing. Instead, it's a collection of assets, these buckets, that we have to consciously, actively fill. Because if they're empty, well, you've got nothing to give, nothing to build with. So, what are these buckets?
Okay, let's dive right in, starting with the most fundamental part. Actually building that personal foundation for success. Because let's be real, without a strong foundation, everything else you try to build is just going to be on shaky ground.
So the source introduces this really powerful metaphor called the 5 buckets. I want you to think of these like a personal inventory, a dashboard for your own potential. Once you get what they are, you know exactly where you need to be investing your time and energy.
And what's so great about this framework is just how complete it is. It really covers the whole shebang. You've got your internal assets, like your knowledge and your skills, but it also includes your external ones, like who you know, your network, and maybe most importantly, what the world thinks of you, your reputation.
And the source uses a perfect example, Elon Musk. Think about it. His wild ideas about electric cars and colonizing Mars, they only became truly believable to investors and, the rest of us, once his buckets were overflowing. Especially his reputation and his resources from past successes. It just goes to show how filling these up empowers you to do some pretty incredible things.
So, now that we get the buckets that define our potential, let's look at how to really, truly fill the first 2, knowledge and skills. Because this isn't just about learning stuff, it's about achieving deep, genuine mastery.
It all started with a personal challenge. The author tells this amazing story about being a teenager, totally terrified of public speaking, and then transforming into this globally recognized speaker. And that transformation, it came from discovering a learning technique used by some of the smartest people who ever lived.
And the secret was this, the Feynman technique. The whole idea here is that you don't really understand something until you can explain it so simply that a child could get it. That act of teaching, of simplifying, it forces you to grasp the material on a completely different level.
And this breaks it down into 4 simple steps to mastery. First, you learn. Then you simplify it down to its absolute core. Then you share it, you get it out there to get feedback and see if your explanation actually works. And finally, you review and you refine. It's this loop you see. This cycle of learning and teaching is what turns shallow knowledge into a deep, usable skill.
All right, so you've built your skills, your knowledge bucket is filling up. But how do you shape the way the world sees them? This is where that reputation bucket comes into play. And trust me, the rules here get really, really interesting.
The source makes the super provocative point. The frame matters more than the picture. So the picture is the actual thing, your product, your skill. But the frame? That's the story, the presentation, the perceived value around it. And a lot of the time, that frame is what people are actually buying.
This is driven home with a fantastic personal story. The author was in love with his clothing brand because of its story, this frame of artistry and unique vision. But then, a video comes out showing the clothes were just being mass-produced in a factory. That frame was completely shattered, and the love for the brand, it just vanished, even though the shirts themselves were exactly the same.
So, here's the crucial takeaway. If you want to create a powerful, memorable frame, you can't just be normal. Normal is invisible. You need something that stands out, and a lot of times that means embracing a little bit of absurdity.
And this image just captures it perfectly, doesn't it? A practical improvement, like making the office Wi-Fi faster, is useful, sure, but it's forgotten in a week. But an absurd, memorable gesture, like putting a giant blue slide in the middle of the office, that creates a story. It tells a whole book about your company's culture that a small, practical fix never could.
All right, let's move on to the final piece of this growth puzzle. We're talking about building the resilience to handle the pressure that always comes with ambition. Because let's face it, big achievements are never a smooth, easy ride.
I absolutely love this counterintuitive idea from IBM's founder. If you want to increase your success rate, double your failure rate. It completely reframes what failure is. It's not a setback, it's data. It's a necessary ingredient for success. The more you fail, the more you learn, and the faster you get where you're going.
And this just illustrates the point perfectly. 10,000. That's the number of ways Thomas Edison found that wouldn't work before he invented the light bulb. He didn't see them as failures. He saw them as successfully discovering 10,000 ways not to do it. Each failure was just progress, moving him one step closer to the answer.
So how do you make failure productive? The source gives us this fantastic tool called the pre-mortem. Instead of waiting for something to go wrong, you actually get ahead of it. You imagine the project has already failed, and then you ask, okay, why did it fail? It helps you see the obstacles before they even happen.
And by following these simple steps, you can turn these potential disasters into challenges you can actually manage. You set the stage, imagine the worst has already happened. Then you brainstorm all the reasons it could have gone south. Talk about them openly, without any blame. And then, and this is the magic part, you build plans to prevent those very things from happening in the first place. It's a brilliant way to plan for failure so that you can ultimately win.
Ultimately, so much of this comes down to mindset. The source makes this great distinction between stress, which is your internal response, and pressure, which is external. And you can reframe that external pressure. You can see it not as a burden, but as a privilege. It's a sign that you're in the arena, that you're taking on a challenge that actually matters.
So there we have it, a whole framework for growth. It starts by building your foundation with the 5 buckets. Then, you master your craft by becoming a teacher. You shape how people see you with the frame that stands out. And finally, you build resilience by embracing failure as just a stepping stone. The tools are all right here. The only question left is, which one are you going to start applying tomorrow?